Hey guys, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. This is my review and Easter eggs video for Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 6, The Impossible Box. Right off the bat, let me just tell you, I feel like the odd one out. Because everyone seems to love this episode, and I don't. Look, I know we can't all always share the same opinions, but usually when I feel differently about something, I can go check out some of the other reviews or discussions and somehow relate to or understand where that opinion is coming from. This time, that's not the case, and it isn't for a lack of trying. I mean, I've watched more reactions than usual, really listened to what people have to say, and yet I still don't really like this episode. I'm at a loss. Regardless, here are my thoughts, here are my honest opinions. Let's go. It's not that the episode was outright bad or unwatchable. To me, the episode simply felt uninspired and stretched out. I was bored. Granted, this episode offered the best interactions between Soji and Narek, but I mean, the bar was set so low in their previous appearances that doesn't really mean anything. And sadly, their interactions here culminated into a Romulan meditation ritual that didn't make a lot of sense. I do appreciate that they're trying to tie the Romulan and Vulcan cultures together a little more, but still, walking around a room, I don't know. That being said, character-wise, frankly, Narek and Soji are the least of my concerns. Narek's sister, for example, Narissa, is so two-dimensional she feels like she's from another show. Up until now, each episode has taken the time to build and create dense backstories as well as interesting motivations for each character, except this one Romulan, which seems to simply be bad because the plot demands it. It's bizarre. And then, Picard. He was rude. And that was quite out of character. Now, I'm not talking about when he raised his voice to Elnor. That, I think, worked well, especially considering it could tie into his Irmotic syndrome and having those mood swings. What I'm talking about is when he interrupted Dr. Jurati. He didn't let her finish or hear her out, which is strange for him, and worse, the clapping. Raffi clearly wasn't feeling very well, both physically and psychologically. To add to that, her longtime friend just hung up after explicitly telling her to never call her again. And they made Picard clap? I didn't like that. I know he was a captain that was sometimes quite harsh, but he was never disrespectful and never inconsiderate, so yeah, this shocked me. Continuing on with character moments, I was disappointed that Rios and Agnes slept together, although I admit this might not come down to bad writing, just personal preference. I've been wanting them to get together since day one, but not like this. Not at a moment of insecurity where it almost felt like Rios took advantage of her. The actual bad writing was Elnor staying behind when Picard and Soji left the cube. He didn't need to. The special room opened in only a few seconds, but then all of a sudden it needs multiple minutes to close. No. The plot needed Elnor to stay behind, and it was done in a lazy fashion. Speaking of the Borg cube, that's another thing I don't like. I don't like it. I don't like its aesthetic. I think it feels too clean, too crisp, too designed, whereas the Borg are traditionally driven by functionality and efficiency. Of course, it is hard for me to present this argument because, as we all know, the Borg are constantly evolving and upgrading their technology, so technically anything you do with them can work, but for some reason it didn't feel like a Borg cube. Now, of course, there are some things that I did enjoy. The Raffi and Rios moment, for example, was very touching and very well performed. Not only was it great to see them actually be friends on the show, seeing things always has more impact than just hearing about them, but also it added yet more depth to both characters. It was also nice seeing Hugh again. The kid dream version of Soji, I think that actor did a great job, and I think she was very well cast. The concept that the Borg assimilated the Sicarians and adapted their transporting technology to their needs is fantastic. I love the idea that every cube or every ship in the collective has a special queen room, the queen cell, in which there is now a spatial trajector. Because even if the maximum range of each single trajector is 40,000 light years as they put it, the queen could technically do ship-to-ship jumps and find herself on any ship in the fleet at any time. It's so practical. She can now be physically present at any battle or encounter she wants. Now, as you may have noticed, many of these complaints and compliments are about the details, not so much the plot. And that's because I don't really know what to say other than, well, it moved the overall story of the season forward. I mean, they got to the Borg cube, Picard met Hugh, Picard saved Soji. The story can now move on into its final chapter, finding the planet full of androids, revealing the Zartvash secret, etc. So, yes, the events of this episode were important to the story, but they were dragged out for too long. Ultimately, the episode ended up feeling sluggish, and I was bored for most of it. Okay, that's it for my review. I'm sorry to disappoint. I don't mean to be an asshole. It's just how I feel. And if I don't actually say how I feel, then there's no point in making these. So, yeah. The production quality is still very good. I mean, the lighting, the props, the sets, the costumes, that's all great. No problem there. Even the visual effects, that's all good. Alright. Easter eggs and references. Let's go. This episode deals heavily with Picard's past, in particular his previous encounters with the Borg. The first reference to this is made by Dr. Girardi, who gives a detailed description of what happened to him in the Next Generation double episode, The Best of Both Worlds. The next references come up when Picard is doing research on his holographic LCARS display, actually described on screen as the Library Computer Access Retrieval System. Stills from The Next Generation, First Contact, and Deep Space Nine pop up, including a picture of Hugh, a shot of the Romulan Continuing Committee, and the battle that took place in First Contact, etc., etc. We later see flashbacks as part of Picard's PTSD when he gets close to the other Borg. In those flashbacks is a shot of the Borg Queen. Seven also got similar flashbacks in certain episodes of Voyager. Speaking of Voyager, Soji has a little box on which we can see the Flotter character, a fictional holographic character first introduced in Voyager as part of a children's holo novel and adventure series. Seeing him here does make sense because even Janeway at one point said that she used to play the Flotter programs when she was younger, so I mean he's a pretty famous character. We also got to see what they describe as the Queen Cell in this episode, something that we've already seen a lot of in Voyager. And the gateway Picard and Soji walk through at the end is technology said to be adapted from the now assimilated Sicarians. It's unclear as to whether or not all of the Sicarian people were assimilated, but one thing is for sure, the technology does come from them, considering the Voyager episode in which they are featured focuses specifically on their spatial trajectory and how the Voyager crew could potentially use it to take some time off their travels. This little Romulan device is reminiscent of the one seen in Nemesis. Raffi and Rios mention latinum, which is a currency often used in Deep Space Nine, though in Deep Space Nine it's gold-pressed latinum. Narek explains that implanting false memories is common practice, which is very true considering the Romulans themselves did this to Geordi in The Next Generation. And finally, Emmy, Raffi's friend, says that the Romulans are in a 250-year-old bad mood, which is a clear reference to what happened in 2152 in Enterprise that eventually led to the Earth-Romulan War. And there you have it. Those are the Easter eggs and references. That was my somewhat negative review. Don't worry, I'm sure the next episode will be fine, and we're all gonna love it. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. You can support this channel on Patreon. And live long and prosper.